In this video I'm going to show you the full process I used to create a CS2 thumbnail like this. We'll start in Blender, where I'll set up the agent pose, waypoint, camera and lighting, then render everything and move into Photoshop to create the thumbnail. After launching Blender, the first thing I'll do is open the file with the agent model I need. Then I'll click File, Import and GLTF 2.0 to import the AVP model. If you see this sphere instead of the weapon model, don't panic and don't think you did something wrong. Just click on this green person, then in the viewport display tab uncheck shapes and instead of octahedral choose stick. That's it, problem solved. To hide these strange lines just press H, we don't need them here. As you can see, for some reason there are two weapons. I honestly have no idea why there are two, but we only need to keep one and I think it's the gray one because the skin doesn't apply properly to the greenish one. Actually applying the skin is very simple. Go to the shading tab and find the node called base color. That's basically the weapon skin. To change it, just click here, then on this folder that appears and choose the skin. In my Telegram channel I leave both the weapon model and the skin UV unwrap, so check the description and download them from there. And just like that we can get any weapon with any skin. After that we can go back layout. Next I'll simply try to pose the character using a reference like this. Just select the bone, go into pose mode, choose rotate and try to match the reference. I also made a separate video focused specifically on posing CS2 agents in Blender, so I'll leave that link if you want to check it out. There I explained in more detail how it works and how you can pose the agent the way you need. Honestly, once you practice a bit, there is nothing too difficult about it. Most of it is done with just one tool. But if you don't want to create the Blender render yourself, I also have a Fiverr gig where I can make a custom CS2 agent render for you with your own agent, waypoint and pose. And if you need a full CS2 thumbnail, I also offer that on Fiverr. The price is quite a bit lower right now, but I'll be raising it soon, so if you want to get a thumbnail at the current price, you can check out the gig through the link in the description. Now that we're done with posing the character, let's go back to object mode, press Shift+A, add a camera and position it the way we want the final render to look. But we also need to add light, because as you can see it's very dark right now. This is done with the same way we added the camera, then press G and move the light so it falls on the agent. You can also reposition it if you don't like how it looks. And now we simply render and save the image. Now we have a good render of the agent, but we still don't have a background for the thumbnail. So I'll go into the game, launch a match with bots, kick the bots, enable SW cheats, use no clip, hide the HUD, find a good location and simply take screenshots with F12. That's it. You can find all those screenshots here by clicking on any of them and choosing show on disk. After picking the background I like, I'll slightly adjust it using generative fill, removing the parts that feel unnecessary or make the composition too crowded. I want there to be more sky. I do this a few times, then duplicate the image, flip it horizontally, erase the unnecessary parts and generate again. I'm happy with the results, so I'll keep it. We can also add the text behind the character right away, just choosing the text tool and type the word highlight. To be honest, I'm not sure if I need to explain this part in too much detail, but in short I went back to Blender to make a render of the agent without the weapon, simply because I'm going to move the hands and the weapon a little and it would be convenient to cover all those holes later. I'm just mentioning it so you understand why I did it this way and and why your process might look a little different if you're following along. I also tried to remove this thing here, I think it's a gas mask, using generative fill, but it didn't work well, so instead I just duplicate the agent, flipped it horizontally and erased the unnecessary parts. I also separated the hands and the AVP like I said, just for convenience. I recommend doing the same. As you remember, instead of the agent's head there will be Monis's head, so I add his photo and separate the head and neck from the background. Of course I erased the agent's original head using a black brush on the mask. And these are the holes I was talking about when we move the weapon around like this. That's exactly why I made a separate render of the body. Then I carefully blend Ilya's hand into the body so it looks like he's actually wearing this gear. Using Puppet Warp I make it slightly smaller so it looks more natural. It already looks pretty good, but it still needs more work. Let's start with the background. I'll make it more contrasty and saturated through camera raw, and then using sky replacement I'll change the sky. But I won't use the standard sky options offered by Photoshop. Instead I'll load my own. Here I want the sky to be dark. You can also darken the image a bit, and I think in this case it works well and looks good. I do it with a regular black color on a new layer. You can also add a slight glow behind Ilya. Again, all of this is done by eye. There is no universal rule for how much to darken or how much glow to add. The main thing is that it looks good and not overdone. Using the patch tool I'll remove the pimples. I just select the area I want to replace and drag it onto a clean area. Now, just like we did with the background, we also need to make the outfit more contrasty, saturated and bright. But there is no universal method here either because it all depends on the lighting and the quality of the image. Just look at the result. We do the same with the weapon, but in this case I want to make it more saturated. And of course we also need to color correct Ilya himself. Here you need to be careful not to overdo it so the face doesn't become too contrasty or on the contrary overexposed. Next I add some light glow and darken certain parts in a slightly chaotic way. Maybe it's not ideal that I jump from one thing to another, but overall it's still clean what I'm doing. To draw only on a specific element, simply click on the element itself, specifically on its layer icon while holding down the Ctrl key, and then draw on a new layer. Also using Selective Color, I make the face more saturated by adding more red and yellow tones. For the text I use the Fortnite font and keep it a very simple style with a gradient where the top is white and the bottom is slightly gray, a shadow like this and a small white glow. As you can see, I also added a little stable diffusion. This is completely optional and honestly I feel like not many people use this method now, but I like the effect it gives, so I decided why not. But again, it's not necessary at all. By selecting the top layer and pressing Ctrl-Alt-Shift-E, we create a new layer with a merge copy of all visible layers, so we can do color correction on it. I want this thumbnail to be darkened and more contrasty, so that's the kind of color correction I'm going for. But I can brighten Ilya's face and the weapon a little using curves, something like this. At this point I don't like that the background stands out too much, so it needs to be blurred. The best way to do that is to go into neural filters and depth blur with settings around these. Not too much blur, but enough so the background doesn't pull too much attention away. To remove blur from the text I use the same key combination to create another merged layer. Separate Monacy and move the text under that layer. You can also add some small particles in the upper part, of course erasing the unnecessary parts on the mask, and then once again use Selective Color to add some saturation. In the end, after adding one more color correction layer, the thumbnail becomes less dark and quite saturated, and I like how it turned out. And this is the final result. That's the full process I used to create CS2 thumbnails with Blender and Photoshop. If this video was helpful, feel free to subscribe because I'll be posting more videos about CS2 thumbnails, Blender and Photoshop. And if you need help with your own project, I also offer both CS2 renders and full CS2 thumbnail design. You can find the links in the description. Also check the pinned comment, there will be a link to my Telegram channel where I'll leave the weapon model and the skin UV unwrap, and from time to time I'll also post other useful stuff there. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next video.